Today's guest is someone who saw a problem most of us scroll past and decided to build a solution instead. Kelly Obermayer is the founder and CEO of Jovell Digital and the creator of United We Fund, a microgiving platform designed to fundamentally change how people support one another financially. The idea is simple but powerful. People give small amounts into a shared fund, and real verified needs are met directly, without gatekeepers, without algorithms, and without someone deciding who is worthy of help. But what makes Kelly's story so compelling isn't just what she's building, it's how she started. This was not a funded idea or a teamed back launch. It began with a moment, really, sitting on our couch, watching people online, asking for help and realizing, hey, she had the ability to do something better. So she did, alone, no roadmap, no permission, just a belief that there had to be a better way for people to show up for each other. And I freaking love it. I am so glad you're here, Kelly. Thank you for coming onto the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This
Oh
is
my
a really
gosh,
special moment, Carrie. Thank you.
so for the listeners, I originally saw Kelly on TikTok. If you follow It's Not That Serious, we do stuff on TikTok. We love our TikTok. We love the other socials also, but
Yeah.
TikTok has a special place in our heart. And I saw Kelly there and I was like, this chick is badass. And this idea is money. Love it. I just love the idea. So I immediately reached out to Kelly and was like, oh my God, girl, I got to get you on the podcast. So I am so stoked about this conversation. And I always like to start, for our listeners, I always like to start in the same place. So before we get into what you're building and all these amazing ideas that you've had and are having, I'd love to start with who you were before all of this. What was the younger Kelly like?
I love that question so much. I am very fortunate because I had a beautiful childhood. I really did. I am an only child, and I grew up from the upstate New York region. So I'm an only child to two parents who wanted to have children desperately. And so they tried for many years before and after me, but they made sure every single day that they knew that I was very, very special. So they went out of their way to be super involved in everything that I did. And I was very involved. So I was very involved in traditional things, right, that we think of. So I was involved in dance and musical theater and things that take money and they take involvement, right? So I was very fortunate that I got to be involved in all of those things. And on top of that, my parents were really, really good at instilling in me that anything that I put my mind to, I'm going to be able to achieve. And so I, took that to heart, still to this day as an adult. But I will say that I grew up thinking that I was an exceptional dancer because my parents told me that I was, a super, super incredible dancer. And I have since looked back on some of these videos, from the late 80s, like early 90s, looking at these videos because they were so good at convincing me that anything that I do, I can put my mind to. And I look back at some of these videos and I talk to my aunts, and cousins to this day, and I'm thinking, there's no way that girl that they were talking about is the same one that's in these videos because that skill set might have skipped me. But that being said, the sentiment stuck, even if the dance skills I don't think did, but the sentiment stuck. So,
I love that so much. And that's how
yeah.
sweet of your parents. And they probably truly believed it in their heart of hearts. They're like, she's gonna be a ballerina. But
Yeah,
that's
I
such an
think so.
important point, because what we instill in our kids, what we allow them to believe about themselves, basically leaves no limits. I definitely
Exactly.
had parents that were very encouraging. I mean, I could tell my mom, I'm going to be an astronaut one day and a clown tomorrow and a dentist the next day. And she'd be like, great, honey. You're going to be amazing.
Yes.
And what that does, as you're a perfect example of, is you just believe like anything is possible and I can do anything. And then you come up with amazing ideas like what you're doing now. So I love that so much. You lived through a lot, personal loss, trauma, multiple reinventions. How have those experiences shaped the way you see the world today?
So I can start with the most recent because I was just talking about my parents. Well, unfortunately, I mean, they were absolutely incredible people. And unfortunately, my mother passed away in 2018. And on the 1 year anniversary of her passing, my father got diagnosed, I mean, to the day, the
My
same
goodness.
weekend of her 1 year anniversary. He got diagnosed with a very rare form of cancer, and then passed away in 2020. So
Oh, I'm so
we
sorry.
were, thank you. But we were so myself, I'm an only child. I do have a wonderful support system, but, so the trauma of losing two parents, very close, in
Yeah.
years, is one thing. But I want to go back even a little bit. In college, I think, like, as a woman, you go away to school, and in college, I experienced, unfortunately, what a lot of other women experience in their lifetimes, domestic violence situations, sexual assaults, lots of things that, contribute to who you become as an adult. And I think, when I share these stories and I talk about these things with other women, with men, especially with young women as they're starting out going to college and moving on with their lives, it's like, I think most of them say to me, well, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have moved on, or I don't know how you do it. And I think, I've evolved to say, if I were you, and this hadn't happened, I would have said the exact same thing. Like, I couldn't have done it either. Or I don't know how you do it when you've survived this either. And what I will say is that the Kelly who existed before these things happened probably couldn't have done it either. But I had no choice, right? Like many of us when these things happen to you. So a new version of you gets born when these things happen. And I'm a completely different individual now than I was before experiences in college and before the loss of parents and any other traumas that may come. So reinvention, is important, and it's not, and what I will say is, like, the trauma is not what heals you or forces you to become that new individual. It's you, it's me. I'm the one who propelled me into these new versions. I'm proud of that.
Yeah. And the hard stuff, whether we're talking about death or sexual assault or even a bad business experience, like all these
Yeah.
bad experiences really build our character and they build who we become. And if everything was just always perfect, you would be such a lighter layer of who you are, and you have this beautiful
I agree.
depth and breadth to you. And so I think that's the other thing that's a really good message for young women or other just women that are out there listening, that the bad things happen to a lot of people, and it's not necessarily about that thing, but what glimmers you can take from it and how it can make you better. When you're in the moment, it's very hard to see that, but as you get time away from it and you think, what am I supposed to learn from this? It just makes you, Kelly, is such a much more fuller, more beautiful, more expansive person because of those experiences. Not that you would ever wish any of that stuff on anyone, but it makes you such a much deeper individual and just much more colorful individual. So I love that you are taking the good pieces out of it because it's really hard to do.
Yes, I agree. And I love that word glimmer. That's an important part to bring up.
Yes, seeing the glimmers throughout the day. I think that's a
Yes,
lovely way to look at things,
it is.
for somebody that's listening that's never heard that before. There's a recommendation that you find the glimmers in the day. So, little tiny things here and there throughout the day that are, you find a penny, or somebody compliments you, or gosh dang it, your hair just turned out really good today, or whatever, like it doesn't have to be like
Exactly.
you won the lotto. It can be little things. And they all add up into, they're called little glimmers, and they all add up into this amazing, create an amazing day for us. So, yeah, I think that it's really important to notice those. You shared that what you're doing now all started with a moment sitting on your couch, watching people ask for help online. So what was it about that moment that hit you so deeply? And what were you feeling sitting there realizing something needed to change?
So I found myself scrolling, right, on TikTok. We love, like you said, we love our TikTok.
Love a
I
doom
found
scroll.
myself doom scrolling. And I found myself nodding, and I was nodding, and I was nodding. So at first, it wasn't an idea. At first, I was just agreeing. I was thinking, oh my gosh. And so the specific example was, oh, if only 10,000 people would give me $1, I could pay off, my college tuition. Or if only 5,000 people would give me $1, I could, help pay off my car. And I kept thinking, yes, you're absolutely right. It's time we start refiguring this out. And so with each video, I kept figuring out pieces. I was thinking, oh, well, yeah, if we did this small part, then that would make sense. And then if we did this small part, then that would make sense. And it was starting to cause me problems. I'd think, oh, well, then that wouldn't work, and then this wouldn't work. And I was iterating on each video. I kept thinking, I would get one step further, and then I would take two steps back, and I would think, okay, well, that won't work. And then all of a sudden, I thought to myself, like, I'm building something here. Like, I can do this. And it just started snowballing from there. So I started doom scrolling less, and I started picking up my laptop more, and I started again iterating. I started really iterating on that process, and I started really taking seriously those pieces of, well, that's not going to work. Okay, well, let's figure out what's going to fucking work. Like,
Right.
I just want to take this problem and fix it because I can fix this. And so, I'm very fortunate to have picked up these skills along the way. I did not start out in this field, but I learned these skill sets over the past 2019. I got into the tech field. And so since 2019, I've been picking up this skill set as a woman in tech. And I thought, I can do this. And so that was really the moment where I started, my algorithm kept sending me these videos, and I kept using it as a jumping off point to solving this problem.
I love it. And I think that you are absolutely definitely not alone. I know even myself, I've seen some of these videos and I'm like, yeah, like everybody just give them $1. Like let's all just give them $1.
Right.
Or
Right.
as just the generic example, but there's so much more than just like, oh, everybody give $1. Like it's so broad when you really start thinking about it. And I think it's like I love the feelings for me when I think about what you're doing and what you're building is just so hopeful and excited, because I feel like so many people right now are very hopeless and are just like frustrated and hopeless, and like the economy, and they're like, oh my gosh, the groceries, the gas, the yada yada yada. Um, and I think that's what I was really drawn to. It's so exciting, and about the possibility of giving so many people hope and redirecting how we do things. I mean, it really I see your vision, and it's so exciting. And I think for me it just is like all these hopeful feelings and excitement. Um
Yes.
a lot of people have ideas, and I'm one of them. I always have some kind of wacky idea. But very few actually build something from nothing. So what made you decide, I'm not going to just think about this, I'm going to actually build it? Like what motivated you outside of like the doom scroll, like, oh yeah, like maybe I'll send him $1.
Yeah. No, so my husband, I think he would call me, I've been married for 21 years, and I think he would call me a serial entrepreneur, but in a good way. He's the most supportive person in the world. And, I've started businesses, and also, the successful. I've been a Zoom, aside from what I said about dancing, I have been a Zumba fitness instructor. I ran a business doing that when I was a stay-at-home mom for years. I've been a teacher. I've worked in tech. And, it comes from this place of, again, chronic feeling of knowing that this is going to succeed, because I genuinely believe in my heart and down into my soul that there's no room for failure, right? So all of these things that I've started, it doesn't even enter my brain that this is not going to work. I'm just, if I run into obstacles, I'm just 100%, 110% convinced that I'm going to make it work no matter what. And so this was unique in the sense, and I'm so happy that you mentioned hope, because this one is so unique in the sense of why this particular idea is so important and just has to work, because it's so important to millions of people that it just doesn't occur to me to not continue with this idea. And mainly because I know that I found a solution that's going to work. I know that it's going to help millions of people when they genuinely need it, that it just doesn't enter my brain to stop with this idea. And so I just am going to keep going no matter what.
I love it. I love it so much. You said something really interesting and powerful to me, that the financial system was never built for all of us. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I just mean with this that the system was designed to, when people are struggling, to keep those people who are struggling, right? Things like interest rates and loans, they're just designed, credit scores, credit cards, right? They're designed so that when you hit bottom, rising to the top is nearly impossible. So it feels like it's, freedom, but it's just wrapped up in this bow of trap, right, behind the scenes. It's really not this system that's meant to truly provide help to the people who need it the most. And my goal is to help. It's just really not a model that's designed to exclude anyone. And I feel like the system is designed to exclude people who are struggling because it's meant to keep them struggling long term.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. There's so many flaws in the way that we do a lot of things right now, and it's just like something even as simple as, like, gosh, I remember, man, I was broke in my 20s and was a young parent, and I always felt like, gosh, I could never get ahead, and I remember, like, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and with rent and, car payment or whatever. And like, God forbid you get a bank overdraft fee, because then they just start piling up and piling up. And I remember, like, at one time, like, having so many and being like, I don't know, how do I get out of this? Because then you're so behind, and then you're paying the overdraft fees, and there's so many things in our system that are, like, so much more dramatically not great compared to just an overdraft fee. Like, for example, like you said, mortgages, interest rates, school loans. Like, people have school loans into their 50s, and it's like, what is that? Like, what is that about? Like, how does that make any sense to anyone? Like, that's craziness, right? And so, or even, like, you know, uh, gosh, I could go down a huge rabbit hole here, but I'm going to pull myself back, because there are
No,
just so
that's
many things
okay.
that this
Go
this
ahead.
this
Yeah,
applies to.
it does. It does. And I think it also, it applies, and this is, I think, where, it's not worse at the bottom, right? But like where people are really struggling for basic needs, right? For basic needs just to eat or, be able to pay for medical care. But it reaches everyone because even when you feel like you're starting to get ahead, you can get hit with some large medical bill or some large car issue or whatever it is. And then you think you have everything set up, and then it's tens of thousands of dollars out of the blue. And so it comes in all shapes and sizes, I think. And so financial insecurity is so much more widespread, and it can be so much more secretive. So I think there's some very obvious financial insecurity, and then I think that there's more secretive, appearances, hidden financial insecurity that really can, something like that the app is going to be able to help so many more people than we're even just assuming from the start. And at the beginning, at launch in the fall, this is going to be our first national launch. And so there are going to be some initial individual ask caps, right? We are going to have to cap that in the beginning. So today, this is car payments, food, grocery bills, smaller medical bills, those types of asks. But the future of this type of model and this app, my vision for this is eventually things like mortgages, down payments, college tuitions. I mean, once this model is implemented and we realize the extent to which all of us can help each other, it's endless. And it's really exciting to start thinking about.
Oh my gosh, it's so inspiring and it is so exciting because once you start really thinking about it, then you're really like going down every single rabbit hole. You're just like, and then this, and then this, and then this. So there's like so many amazing ways it could work and could help so many people. One of the most interesting parts of what you're building is that people can be both a giver and a receiver, which I think is awesome. So because there's so many times when you may need help, but then you're also like, you know what, this month I could give $1 or I could give $10 or whatever it is, versus like, gosh, last month I was really struggling. So why is that so important? And what do you think that idea, or why do you think that idea challenges people of being a giver and a receiver?
Yeah. And so looking into the psychology of this was a big part of building this app for me, and looking into the benefits of being able to give when you're struggling is staggering. And so I'm going to actually look at my notes because I want to get this right.
Okay,
But
good.
so there was a study that a Harvard professor, her name was Elizabeth Dunn, and so research was done by her. And it was a landmark experiment that they did. So participants were all given money and randomly told to spend it on themselves or on others. And so those who spent it on others reported significantly higher levels of happiness at the end of the study. And that research, of course, was done by Elizabeth Dunn, but they've replicated that across all different cultures, all different age groups. And so the short of this is that giving makes people happier than spending it on themselves, even when they have a little bit. So that's just there's much more research and studies that I've looked into. But the reason that this is so impactful is because if you have $1,000 of credit card debt or medical debt or whatever it may be, that can be very overwhelming to you if you're making minimum payments of $1,000, $1,500 every month. You might be struggling to come up with that $1,500 payment, but you can give $1 toward the shared fund, or you can give $1 monthly. And knowing that you can give to this movement and to this app and contribute to changing the lives of your neighbors and your friends, while also submitting a need and getting into the queue and knowing that your life is going to be helped and that financial burden is going to be lifted off your shoulders, is very psychologically powerful. And that's the benefit. So I know when I initially put the TikTok out there, I phrased it in a way that I think makes people feel like they need to choose between being a giver and a receiver. And the app does not distinguish. You do not have to choose as a role. So this question is so important because as a user, you're both at all times. So you can always ask for help, you can always give, and you don't have to choose. You can give and receive at all times. So
I
with no
love that
requirement
so
to choose.
much. I
Yeah.
love that so much because, again, quite frankly, you could have a really shitty month and just be like, oh my God, everything's falling down on top of me. I don't know how I'm going to pay
Yes.
things. And the next month you're like, you know what? Because I received that money and I don't have that debt anymore, heck yeah. Now I can, like, it's not a big deal for me to give a dollar. Last month, it was a big deal for me to give a penny because I didn't have it. And so I
Yeah.
love this concept of the giver and the receiver. And also, I think it just makes everybody feel more connected. And why wouldn't everybody want to participate? So, Joe puts in his $15,000 whatever bill, and Karen puts in her whatever bill, and Steve puts in his whatever bill, and Jill puts in her whatever bill, and at the same time they're giving, and they're able to, like, I feel like it's really a really well-rounded way for people to participate and not feel like, oh, I'm giving charity to X, but you know what, gosh, I really need help. I feel like that kind of helps answer those funky feelings of like, is it okay for me to ask for, like, help with this
Yes.
thing? Like, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, there's, like you were saying, there's no requirement. You do not need to give to receive. There's no quid pro quo. I mean, you don't have to, it's not a subscription. There's no requirement to give a dollar to ask for help. It's just where you are. There's no judgment. It's just asking for help from the community. And I think that's another good distinguishing point compared to some other fundraising out there. All fundraising is great, but this is like another distinguishing factor with the app as well. This is just also judgment free giving. This is just you giving a dollar to a fund without any choice essentially of where it's going. You just are giving it knowing that you're helping people who are asking. And I think there's a lot of power in that as well. This isn't choosing who has the most viral story. This isn't negotiating with all these different stories of saying, oh, I think you deserve it more than this person. It's just, I'm giving knowing that I'm helping people. And there's a lot of power in that. There may be some people whose model doesn't work for them, but I know that there is going to be a lot of people who it's going to work for. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I love the idea of not putting limits on it and not being, also limited by who's the most viral and all of that, because, like, some people are like, dude, I don't have TikTok. I don't have
Right.
whatever, and I still need the help. Like, does that mean it's not worthy? There are many times when there's really sad health cases where people can't afford their medical bills. That doesn't mean that your stress about money isn't valid or isn't terrible. It's just different. And so I love that idea of helping all kinds of different people in different situations, and also having it be just basically like you're giving a dollar or whatever amount, and you know that this is going to go to help somebody. And also, if you want to put in your own thing, you can do that too. So I just think it's a really well-rounded way to kind of include everybody and allow everybody to lift each other up so well.
Mm-hmm.
You built this without investors, without a team, without waiting for permission. Um, Love this so much. Totally right up my alley.
Yeah.
What has that process been like, and what has it required from you personally? And then I have another question once you get through that, that's kind of tied to it.
Yeah. So it's requiring an awful lot of time, right? And it's personal investment so far. So, this is just me investing my time and my money and my energy into this so far. So, this is just me deciding to, making all the decisions, spending my time. So, like I said, I, have a traditional 8 to 5 career, so I do that during the day. And then my 5 to 7 is my momming time period. So, I'm with my children. I have 3 boys. One is in college and 2 are in high school still. So they're super active in sports and practices and meets and games. So my 5 to 7 or 8 is typically that. And then my 8 to 2, 3 in the morning some nights is working on building and launching this app. So that's pretty much the biggest investment so far is my time and connecting all the dots and making sure that we get this out there.
Thank you so much for being here. I hope you love this conversation as much as I did. And we're not done yet. This continues in part 2, so make sure you come back and join us there. That's a wrap on today's episode of Carrie, It's Not That Serious. If this conversation resonated, subscribe and share it with a woman in power in your life. You can find more conversations, more community, and all the fun INTS merch you love at itsnotthatserious.com. We're building something meaningful here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it. Until next time, remember, it's not that serious.